the Labour Party out and about speaking tough about how they are going to crack down on crime. Let's just have a little listen, shall we?
We would have 13,000 more neighbourhood police and PCSOs right across the country because people need to see the Bobby on the beat again, working in communities. Will cost up to £400 million, and we'd fund that by a new programme of police efficiency on contracts that's based on the work of the Independent Police Foundation.
Well, don't forget, of course, it was Tony Blair that said that he was going to be tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. And many people would argue, and it certainly feels, doesn't it, that many of the crime statistics are out of control. They're going in the wrong direction. Billy, do you think that the Labour Party, with their plans of 13,000 extra staff and all the rest of it, is that the answer? Is that going to fix things?
Well, it's going to help fix things. I mean, don't forget, Tories, 20,000 less police officers. So more police officers, more. I'd like to see more bobbies on the beat, as opposed to police cars roaring about, you know, with their sirens playing. I think more people would be reassured. More police on the beat, more PSOs, you know, just to get a feeling of safety. And so I think that what Yvette's talking about is to be welcomed. Do you agree with what she's saying?
Well, I'm always in favour of more police officers, and I share Billy's concerns that we don't see enough officers walking down the street. I mean, where I live, and I live in Weybridge in Surrey, I don't think I have ever seen, in 20 years of living there, ever seen 2 police officers or 1 police officer just walking up and down. Yeah. And I think the police would say it's not good use of our manpower, our woman power. The real question comes down to another issue is, although I'm massively in favour of more police officers, they need to be funded, right? And my question then is, where does the money come from? And you come up with a kind of nebulous expression there from the Shadow Home Secretary, basically saying, we're going to crack down on this or we're going to crack down on that, all of which I'm very happy to happen. But what I do expect to happen is that taxes will then rise to fund what are worries that people have. And why wouldn't they just be honest and say, you know, running the NHS, running the police force, running various state things are going to cost more money and we're going to put the money in, rather than claiming we're going to clamp down on some wealthy people who aren't even going to be in the country anymore. So, you know, I've just got a question mark about whether any of this is possible.
Well, some of these stats, by the way, so she talks about 13,000 new officers. You've got to look at this as well, because about 4,000 of those will be PCSOs. There'll be 3,000 new full police officers, and then you've got your, you know, your specials, like your part-time volunteers as well. They'll be leveraged in there. So she reckons that she can save some of that money by so-called efficiencies. I mean, how we've even got any efficiencies left anywhere is absolutely beyond me, because if all of this excess cash was just floating around, why is it not yet being resolved? Of course, this comes on the day where you've seen that horrendous story where you've got a 9-year-old little girl in critical care. She was injured. She was having dinner with her family in London, and this person just zipped up on a bike, fired shots, and caught the girl in the crossfire, essentially. And I mean, you know, you mentioned you're from Liverpool, so you will be familiar. We've had a couple of cases in Liverpool. Rhys Jones, a little boy there. Olivia Pratt-Corbell, do you remember her? The mum opened the door and she was caught and killed as well. I get goosebumps whenever I think about those 2 cases. And I mean, how do you stop this stuff?
Well, I think we've got to have a look at the drug policy in this country in terms of what it's doing to our streets. When I grew up in the 60s in Liverpool, I lived in Crocs, the same place as the Rooneys. And it was a great place to live. And then Thatcher come along, and our estate becomes Smack City. And so there's got to be a correlation to the investment in public, like, for example, youth clubs. I don't know what the figure is for the number of youth clubs that have been closed. So that's not an excuse for the terrible things that happened over the last 24 hours. But there's definitely a correlation. When I grew up in the 60s, our council estate in a walk-up council flat, we thought it was great. And then come the 80s, unemployment, you know, and all that infuse of drugs, and is definitely all part of it. This is obviously something to do with it. I'm not saying that's a total solution, but it's definitely not an excuse. But it's definitely more police on the beat. More. I think the thing is, rather than just focus on the numbers, more visible presence. I mean, my area in southwest London now is actually quite well policed. But I think that's what people want. They don't want to hear these sirens blaring, because nobody ever seems to know what happened at the end of the police race into a particular incident. You don't see reports of they had to race to this incident because there was some such thing happened. It just seems to be, I think it's a kind of, I don't know, it seems I think people want to see more visible presence.
You've got, for example, about half of police stations have closed down since 2010. Yeah. And as you've just been mentioning, the Tories cut about 20,000, then they've started to rehire lots of those officers as well. And obviously, the Labour Party statistics, they also include some of those hires that have already been made by the Tories. But this notion about youth clubs, we hear this all the time, and actually it's part of the policy of the Labour Party to have these new youth hubs. Does that wash with you, that the reason that these kids are out and about doing stuff is because they can't go play snooker in a church hall or whatever?
You definitely don't want the kind of thugs that hang around in city centres making life a nightmare, but going down to that youth club. That youth club will be shut in about 2.2 seconds, and you probably will need police officers actually on the youth clubs in certain areas of our country in order to make it safe for ordinary people to go there. Now, look, as I point out on a number of occasions, I'm somewhat older. I think it's good to see Billy here because at least that leavens the bread slightly. But I didn't go to youth clubs, right? I didn't go to youth clubs. I mean, you can't say, well, you're an example of the kind of person we don't want actually in a youth club. But is there any example that it is youth clubs? Is it actually the parents of these children who are, well, they're not children, they're teenagers, who aren't doing anything about either trying to control them, and if they can't control them, can they call in the police and say these people are out of control? Should these children be taken away from them? I'm just saying it is literally wrong to have any city centre where anybody feels concerned about going in there at night for fear that they may be assaulted or abused in some way. And clearly, look, if Labour want to do something and experiment, I'm absolutely all for it. But in all honesty, I don't believe that this is the outcome. The outcome will be what they want. What you need is these kids actually either taken away from their parents or something happens. There has been a breakdown between parental responsibility and these children. I blame the parents completely.
Well, one of the conversations that they were having is about reintroducing almost like an ASBO-style, I was going to call it a sanction, but the fact even calling it a sanction would be quite laughable because many of you will remember some of those ASBO kids, and they got these ASBOs. Yep. Like, look at these two. They got these ASBOs, age 11 and 12, these brothers. They almost wore it like a badge of honour.
That's true.
It was almost pretty damn cool to have an ASBO or to have a tag or whatever. And I think with the advent of social media now, obviously that wasn't a thing when those two kids was getting their ASBOs, but when you've got social media now to actually have an ASBO or to have a curfew or a tag or whatever, I worry that, again, it will be more cool. I think Labour want to call them essentially like respect orders. But is that going to work in the social media age, do you reckon, Billy?
Well, I think having police in the community, which is what we've experimented with in southwest London, makes a difference. I think the other aspect of, the fear of nighttime, it's the impact on women. I mean, we've had some really horrible cases. Yep. Admittedly, one was under COVID, but horrible cases of attacks on women. And so more light and more visible presence of police, it doesn't have to be to the point where saturation, but it certainly needs to be that, this kind of behaviour is not acceptable here. And I think in some areas, just to finish this point, I think in some areas the police have given up. They say, oh, it's not worth going in that particular area because it's this, that and the other. So I think the focus on enlivening our city centres, I think what people want is more contact with other people and to be safe in their communities. And I think that's all part of it. Everything now is a bit remote, isn't it? You make that phone call and you realise that they're exceptionally busy and they can't take your call at the moment, but you can go to our website. I think people just want to talk to other people, both in their community and on on the telephones and stuff.
I'm going to start doing a regular section on this programme, I've decided as well, because you see, don't you, all the time, these kind of mugshots of people. Like, have you seen this person? You saw that one in the watch shop the other day, the weekend, where the victim, actually, very sadly, he killed himself. I can't dress it up any nicer way. He killed himself. You've got those mugshots of those two fellas that are wanted. You can see them clear as day. One of the fellas, a massive tattoo all the way around his neck. And I think, well, people must know who these guys are, so why aren't they grassing them up? I saw, like, a funeral of this what I would call a wrong-un, basically. He died, and I saw the floral tributes to him. And the floral tributes were like, there was like an AK-47 that was all done out in flowers. There were these wraps of cocaine that were all done out in flowers. It was all about what a legend...
Where was it? Where was this? Where was the funeral?
I can't remember. I'll find it in the break and I'll tell you exactly where it was. But it was like they were glorifying this fella. And I thought, this is wrong. This is like, there's something going on when you think, fair enough, it's your loved one, you loved him, I don't doubt that, but to actually go to a florist with a straight face and say, can you do me wraps of cocaine surrounded in flowers as a floral tribute to this fella that's died? I mean, why would you even make that as a floral tribute if he was a florist anyway?
Well, that was in 2024. You go back a few years to one of the Crays being buried, and literally people were lining the streets as the hearse pulled by a horse, black horse, was taking him to his final resting place. The guy was a vile killer. I mean, people get caught up in the Robin Hood aspect of crime.
Well,
there was nothing Robin Hood about it. Those people who did that, jewellers, killed that young man as sure as if they put a bullet through his heart. It was shocking.
Yeah, that was an awful one. A couple of things did make me feel quite happy, though, because it's all well and good talking about when crimes are not solved, but I have seen a couple of instances of people actually being brought to book. Have you seen these ones? They certainly caught my eye. This fella, look at him. Hang on, I'll show you what he did. He went on to Facebook and he did this poem. I mean, rap or whatever you want to call it. I'm chilling like a villain. I'm buzzing like a bee. Riding like a soldier. Police can't catch me. Well, they did catch you, my friend, and now you're being banged up in prison, and I absolutely love that. Thank you very much.